The shock of another defeat was overwhelming. He couldn't process how he had lost to a child again. He sat down, trying to comprehend the sheer scale of the kid's power. The mental strain of the fight left him completely disoriented. He let out a heavy sigh, feeling the immense mental fatigue set in. The warrior woman watched him with a gentle smile, advising him to rest, but he refused to stop. As long as the boy was ready, he wanted to go again immediately. With renewed resolve, he lunged forward, trying to seize the opportunity, but just as quickly, his advance was stopped cold. The warrior woman's eyes widened in surprise. Her surprise then turned into an impressed smile. He had understood the technique much faster than she expected. The boy celebrated his victory with a cheerful laugh, playfully mocking the human's size. The young boy relaxed, clearly enjoying his winning streak without a hint of fatigue. The young man, however, was already calculating his next move. He needed to know how time flowed in this strange space. She explained the time dilation. 3 seconds outside was only 1 second here. With that knowledge, she urged him to go again. Seeing his state, however, she changed her mind and insisted he take a break, explaining the ridiculous toll this training took on a human's mind. The young man accepted the challenge with a confident smile, ready to push his limits once more. The scene reminded the boy of his own childhood, when he would fearlessly challenge his mother, who always seemed unimpressed by his youthful energy. The fight resumed, and the young man was immediately overwhelmed by the boy's surprising strength. He was sent flying through the air, completely defeated. The boy celebrated his victory with a triumphant shout, another win under his belt. But despite the loss, the young man felt a breakthrough. He insisted on another round, certain he was on the verge of understanding. He took a moment to reflect, processing the new sensations and the lessons from his repeated defeats. The muscular woman watched him from the side, her expression shifting from simple observation to genuine interest. She recognized a familiar spirit in him, one that reminded her of the legendary founder of the Lee Marshall clan. 2 weeks passed. From the cover of the forest, a mysterious, burly figure watched the training ground. His gaze was intense, analyzing every detail of the scene before him. The hidden observer continued to watch the young man's progress from afar. Then, in a sudden burst of movement, he launched himself from his hiding spot. Meanwhile, the young man finished a task for a group of elves who were astonished by his power and efficiency. He humbly accepted their praise, wiping the sweat from his brow, feeling that his grueling training was finally paying off. A ring of pure energy materialized on his finger, a testament to his newfound control. He then channeled that power, his focus absolute as he completed the task. While the villagers watched in awe, the young man was more impressed with his own internal change. His thoughts were moving faster than ever before. An elf elder, pleased with the display, approached him with a cup. The young man accepted the drink, feeling a strange clarity wash over him as he drank. He was taken aback by the kind gesture, having previously thought the long-lived tribe was unwelcoming. Re-energized, he returned to his work, effortlessly hoisting a massive boulder. The feat left him momentarily breathless, but he could feel his strength growing. A muscular woman from the tribe observed him alongside the elder, a knowing look on her face. Suddenly, she burst into a loud, hearty laugh that startled both the young man and the elf. After her outburst, she smiled warmly at the protagonist. She began to explain that the tribe didn't easily accept outsiders. The young man listened, surprised by her directness. She then revealed the secret of the drink he had been given. It was a special elixir that cleared the mind and rapidly restored mental fortitude. It all clicked into place. The drink was more than just a refreshment. It was a sign that they were truly starting to accept him as one of their own. The protagonist absorbed this revelation, a subtle smile forming as he understood the depth of their gesture. The woman then began to tell him about their past, a history forged in the flames of a great conflict. She spoke of the Great War, a devastating event that had ravaged the lands and left its people in ruin. Her tribe, she explained, were the descendants of those who had survived, forced to become refugees, and from that tragedy, they had built this hidden, vibrant sanctuary for themselves. But as she was speaking, her attention was suddenly drawn away by something else. She sent the protagonist ahead to play with the children, her expression shifting. Her face grew serious as she watched an unexpected visitor approach. It was one of the tribe's elders, and she immediately questioned the reason for his sudden appearance. The elder's ancient eyes, one swirling like a galaxy, held a deep and unnerving wisdom. Meanwhile, the elder was already discussing the protagonist, arguing that this human was unlike the rest. But another tribesman, a large, muscular man, remained deeply skeptical. His expression was hard as he listened, clearly disagreeing with the decision to let an outsider stay. The woman challenged his deep-seated hatred for humans, directing his attention to the scene below where the protagonist was playing peacefully with the children. The elder observed the peaceful scene, contemplating the man's prejudice and the boy's actions. The muscular woman continued to argue on the protagonist's behalf, trying to reason with the skeptical tribesman. But then, her expression shifted to one of complete shock. She was suddenly reminded of the tribesman's bitter words, his deep-seated belief that all humans were cowards who would eventually run away. Her gaze hardened as she processed what she was seeing, the man's warning echoing in her mind. Down below, the protagonist sat on the ground, completely focused. Then, he stood up and walked forward with an air of quiet confidence. The scene shifted, transitioning into a memory of his trial. He recalled the children of the tribe, who were impressed by his incredible persistence and mental strength. They had watched in awe as he countered every technique they used against him, never showing any signs of fatigue. The children had even combined their powers, launching a powerful, swirling attack. Yet, the protagonist had met their challenge head-on, successfully completing the trial. A triumphant smile spread across his face. He had done it. The children, however, were completely exhausted, begging for a rest after 3 straight hours of wrestling. The woman watched this unfold in utter disbelief. In just 2 weeks, he was already winning against the trio. A thoughtful, impressed smile formed on her lips. This human was proving to be something else entirely. As the protagonist meditated, the children he had just trained with ran past him, calling out to the muscular woman. She patted their heads, her mind still on the young man's performance. She was astonished by his endless stamina and his resilience against their attacks. A small, impressed smile formed on her face. This human was unlike any she had ever met. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes snapped open, his concentration broken by an announcement. He rose to his feet with a confident grin. The time had finally arrived for the main event, the 100-person wrestling match. The muscular woman and the children looked on, surprised by his sudden change in demeanor. A large crowd of dokebi had gathered, buzzing with anticipation. A formal match between a human and their kind was an event that hadn't been seen in a very long time. The protagonist took in the scene, the gravity of the trial finally sinking in as he saw the sheer number of spectators. Even familiar faces from the village were present, eagerly discussing the rare spectacle that was about to unfold. The muscular woman placed a hand on his shoulder, getting his attention before the trial began. He turned to her with a grateful smile before addressing the elders, formally asking if they were ready to begin. The 2 dokebi elders overseeing the event shared a look of amusement and approval. The woman watched him, her expression a mixture of surprise and genuine encouragement. The protagonist then took his seat, his gaze steady and filled with determination. He was ready. She gave him one last confident look, a silent acknowledgement of the strength she had witnessed. With a confident smile, the muscular woman declared that the trial was a test of mental fortitude. She didn't waste a moment, officially starting the challenge for the protagonist in front of the entire tribe. The first challengers to step up were the trio of kids he had previously trained with, all of them smiling brightly. But their confidence was short-lived as they were defeated in a flash, marking the beginning of a long and arduous test. Opponents began to appear one after another, and soon the protagonist found himself facing a surprisingly enthusiastic tiger. The young man moved with precision, dodging a relentless barrage of attacks. He held his ground, his focus unwavering as he prepared for the next wave of challengers. A man in a trench coat appeared with a cocky grin, promising that he wouldn't go easy on him. The absurdity of the opponents only grew, as the protagonist then had to face a giant panda, having already defeated more than half the challengers. Next, a massive, fire-breathing serpent emerged from the clouds, escalating the trial to a whole new level. 3 days passed. The non-stop battle had taken its toll, and the protagonist was on the verge of collapse from pure exhaustion. He looked up, his spirit nearly broken, as a familiar voice cut through his fatigue. It was the muscular woman, cheering him on from the sidelines and begging him to keep fighting. Her heartfelt encouragement brought a weary smile to his face, reigniting his will to continue. With renewed determination, he settled back into his meditative pose, now with only 17 opponents left to overcome. The protagonist centered himself, gathering what little energy he had left for the final push. From the sidelines, another member of the tribe offered him words of encouragement. But suddenly, the young man's concentration was broken by a new presence entering the arena. To his surprise, it was the muscular woman herself, kneeling before him as his next challenger. It was then announced that this would be the 100th and final wrestling match of the trial. She rose to her feet, her aura flaring as she revealed herself as his ultimate opponent. The protagonist felt small, as if he were standing before a giant shrouded in clouds. The woman's gaze was sharp and unforgiving. Bound by an oath, she unleashed a powerful strike, holding nothing back. The attack left the protagonist utterly exhausted, but his mind remained surprisingly clear. The internal damage was severe. He coughed up blood, his body failing him, yet his spirit refused to break. He clenched his fist, ready to face her once more. His defiance was met with a sigh of weary amusement. In response to his tenacity, the woman began to summon an overwhelmingly massive boulder, preparing to end the fight. In that moment of crushing pressure, he understood everything he had endured up until now was merely the beginning. But even so, his will did not waver. He pushed through the pain, bracing himself for what was to come. A massive construct of pure energy descended upon him, threatening to obliterate him completely. Against all odds, he threw up a defense, stopping the attack cold. His opponent was impressed by his resilience, but she wasn't finished. She decided to unleash an even greater power, a storm from the heavens. The protagonist looked up, caught in the eye of the raging tempest. The woman watched with a confident smirk, certain this would be the final blow. And then, the full force of the storm came crashing down, engulfing him completely. After 100 trials, was this how his test would finally end?